A cheap, strong shed or garden room base that's never going to rot and is as strong as a concrete pad. But I know what you're thinking, that's a timber base. How can it possibly be as strong as a concrete pad? Well, this is my concrete pier system. And by the end of this video, you'll have all learned how to build it yourself. So the very first thing when you start a shed base like this is to work out where each of your dense concrete block piers need to go. So what I've done is I've set them all out so that there's no more than a 1 meter span between each block in any direction. This particular shed base is going to be 3.2 meters long by 2.8 meters wide to the very edge of each of these blocks. So I've laid them all out very roughly. You're probably thinking they don't look very square, they don't look very level, and you're right, they don't need to be at this stage. Because all we're doing is setting these out so we know where to excavate for a good hardcore base beneath them. So all I've done is I've gone 2.8 meters from the very edge of that block there to the very edge of that block there, and we'll set this out more accurately with string lines once we've dug some holes. And then I've gone 2.8 to 2.8 there, and I've gone 3.2 from that edge to that edge, so I know we've got 2.8 by 3.2, and then I've divided up across the width and the length so I know we've got equal gaps between each block pier and no more than 1 meter between each one. So all you've got to do to copy this is take the length and width of your shed, tailor that to your shed, roughly lay your blocks out, but don't be too critical at this stage. Being square, being level, doesn't matter right now. We'll worry about that once we've excavated for each of these piers. Now you want some line marker, and you've noticed that each of these blocks have got some of this around it. So all I've done is just sprayed a few inches around each block. You don't want to dig a hole the exact size of the block. You want your hardcore Type 1 MOT, which we're going to use later, to run a little bit past them to give them a nice solid base. So I've gone maybe 3 or 4 inches around each block, and I've done that for every single block. The blocks we're using to create these concrete piers are dense concrete blocks. You can get them from any builder's merchant or Wicks and B&Q, and a plane always comes over when I'm filming. So before we start digging, we need to know how much we need to take out of each one of these holes. And to do that, grab an offcut of joist. This is a 6x2 bit of timber, treated timber, and we're actually using 5x2s, but this will work for what I need to demonstrate. So if I lay that on here, if I were to use these joists with my block that far out the ground, I'd have a massive step into my new shed. Granted, a 5x2 is going to be an inch lower down, but these are 100mm dense concrete blocks. And what we want to do is sit these in the ground by 50mm. You can see they're 100mm. We want them down by 50mm. And with that extra inch, that'll make things a little bit lower, and we're going to have some gravel in here as well. You could create a step afterwards, and if you're using this system as a garden room, having it a little bit higher and having a step might be your preference. But for me, I want to drop this down a little bit. So I'm going to drop these in 50mm. I'm going to have a 30mm bed of mortar under them. We then need 100mm for our Type 1 MOT. We'll come back to that, but that's the base we're going to be using. So 180mm, not too much at all, 180mm out the ground. That will be a little harder for me because there's this big tree and there's probably lots of roots in here. So I'm going to move my blocks out of the way and start digging. So that is all of our holes dug. And it takes a little bit of time and effort, but what you want to do now is just get your boots or something heavy like a bit of timber, and you just want to compact that soil and just make sure you've got nice dense soil at the bottom of them. At the bottom of them. Now we're going to build a sub base. This is Type 1 MOT. Pretty cheap, you can get it in bulk and it'll provide us with a nice dense sub base. So we're going to have 100mm of this, like we calculated earlier, into the bottom of each one of those holes. Because typically, if you were building a concrete pad, there'll be a link in the description if that's what you want to do, you'd have 100 or 150mm of Type 1, say, and then you would have 100mm of concrete. Well, these are 100mm concrete dense blocks. So you're replicating that concrete pad without the cost and without the effort as well. So it's a cheaper alternative, an easier alternative, and you get the same result, which you'll see by the end of the video. So starting in this back corner, I'll pop in 100ml of Type 1 MOT. And I can check if I'm high enough, which I'm not. I need to come up a little bit. To compact the Type 1, all I'm going to do is just hit it with the block, and that's going to compact it nicely, because again it's too small to get the compactor in here, and we should be just above ground level. Time we got the mortar under there, that'll bring it up to the right height. So we've made a starting point. Now we just need to do that for the rest of these holes. Once you're happy with the level of this first one, and you know that it's going to be above ground the desired amount, which we wanted 50ml above ground, so by the time we got mortar under that, that's where it's going to be. You then use this block as your datum point, and you level off that block for each hole. Now, there are other ways you can do it, but they use a lot of expensive technology that I appreciate you guys probably don't have. So the easiest way is just to use your level and level from that block to that block. And it hasn't got to be millimetre perfect. So you can see we're within 10mm there, that's fine. You then level from that block to that block, and you can see that one's perfect. So on and so forth, and we'll do the same with that hole once we start going that way. So that is all the hardcore in. But to prove to you that a simple, cheap level works, doing what we just did across the top of each block, I'm going to use this. We're going to get the tech out. This is a Hupar rotating laser level, an awesome bit of kit that will give us our levels. I've set my laser level up, I've set the receiver up on this staff, and I've set it perfectly level on the middle of that first block. Now what we can do, go round, and as long as each one is beeping, so being picked up within the range on the receiver, which is 20mm up or down, tripod's in the way, you're in the way, each one is very close to being perfect. So now that Type 1's in, we know these are somewhat level. What we need to do now is get a string line out and make sure that we get them all perfectly square, and then we're going to mix some mortar up and we're going to lay these things and fix them in their final position before we get the timber base on top of them. And if you're enjoying this video, guys, hit subscribe because there's loads more to come. You don't want to miss it, and hit that like button for me because that helps this video to reach and help more people. So you can see there I've set out some string lines all the way around, because now we need to get this square, and all you need for this is some screws and a string line. All the links to this stuff will be in the description, and what you can see is I've used some stakes. You can bang some stakes in the ground, just use some offcuts like that. You can bang them in the ground to create your corners, and then you can screw into them for your string lines. Now you'll also see that because I've got these sleepers, I didn't need to do that on all the corners, you see? So if you don't have sleepers, use the stakes. So all I've done, if we go from one edge to the other, you'll kind of get the gist of this. Go 2.8 from the edge of that block to that block there, and I've set, of course, that string line there. Going down to the other end, if we pop the tape on there, you'll see we've got 2.8 to the string line there as well. So once we start getting some mortar in there, we'll know exactly where those blocks need to go, because we can look down on the string line and we can see when they're dead in line, so we don't end up with wonky walls. Now for the front and back, you just do exactly the same thing. Now once we start getting some timber in, this will all make a little bit more sense, but the edge blocks, so the front, the back and both sides, they're the only ones that are critical because of how the timbers are going to sit. The middle ones, we can worry about them later, because all they do is bear the weight in the middle. Again, the front edge and back edge matter. These middle ones, they don't really matter at all, but like I say, that'll make more sense when we start to build the timber section of this base. So what we're going to do now is we're going to make sure that this is dead square. Easy way to do that, take corner to corner measurements. If they match, you know they're square. So we should be able to just pop our tape on the corner of that block over there, take a measurement to the corner of this block over here, which is 430, and the measurement should be the same from corner to corner on this side. And all being well, those measurements will match within a few mil, which mine do, and you know it's square, and we can move on and get these blocks laid. So now we're going to make a 4-to-1 mortar mix. That'll be plenty strong enough for what we need to lay these blocks. So that is 4 parts building sand to 1 part cement. And I'm going to be using my JCB 150E mixer that JCB sent me because I used one of these somewhere else and I loved it that much that I asked JCB if I could have one. So I'll show you guys how good this is as we make this mix. This is an incredible mixer, and then we're going to start to lay these blocks.
Looking for the secret that got me here. Some kind of magic ingredient that takes you there.
Right, let's get this out of the barra and I'll show you the consistency. You don't want it too wet because remember you've got the weight of the blocks on top of it. You don't want it to just splodge out from around the blocks, and you don't want it too thick either because then it won't be workable.
Keep showing up. You just keep showing up.
Consistency you're after, not too thin, not too thick. You can see it's nice and workable. And we'll go with a shovelful under these blocks to start with, because remember we're after a 30mm bed, give or take. So I just pop the block onto that bed of mortar. You just want a level for this, and all you're going to do is work to your level.
But you just have to keep showing up. You just keep showing up. Yeah, you just keep showing up. You just
Make sure that each individual block is perfectly level with the previous one. Level off other blocks as you go to make sure everything's true. And don't forget, make sure you're working to your string line. Each one now has a nice bed under it. And just to prove that that level technique works, every single one is absolutely spot on. Now jobs like this, well, you can't get them done without power tools, and on Ultimate Tool Competitions we give away the biggest toolkits on the internet. We've already sent out nearly £50,000 worth of power tools to nearly 200 lucky winners, and this week is no different with this massive 23-piece DeWalt brushless power tool kit. It's got first and second fix nail guns, it's got a miter saw and stand, pretty much every power tool you could need to do this job that we're doing today, and it's even got storage and all the batteries that you need to power it. Nearly £4,000 worth of power tools, and the tickets for this are just £1. The link's down below in the description. Make sure you've got your name in the hat to be in it to win it for this massive kit, and we'll see you in a few weeks on the live draw. Mortar's gone off, those are solid. Now we can get the string lines out of the way. Now you want a weed membrane. This is to stop all them weeds growing around the edge and underneath our base, because that'll look nasty. Don't use the cheap stuff, get the heavy duty stuff. Links to everything you need will be in the description. I then use a knife to cut the membrane around each of the blocks to dress them nice and neatly. Now the lengths of 5x2, we're going to cut these and build the frame on top of them blocks. We know that the edges of these external blocks are nice and square all the way around. We know that from when we laid them. The middles don't matter because all they do is bear the weight. So we're starting to build this frame up. We've got the sides, front and back, and we're going to just make that rectangle first, and then we'll measure 400 centers and put them in afterwards. But that will allow us to square this all up nicely. Now you can use screws. These are Fisher Powerfast screws. I'll link them in the description. They're brilliant screws. Or you can use a nail gun. I appreciate a lot of you won't have one of those, but I'm going to show you that method as well. I'll be using that throughout the process because I've got one, but you can just use an impact driver and screws. Now this timber here is really twisted. You're going to get this, unfortunately, with a lot of timber. Now there's a little tip you can use to manipulate the timber if it's really twisted like this is as you screw it together. You can't really do it with your hands, but you can do it with the bar clamp. I've popped the screws in the end, and you can see I can manipulate that bit of timber and I can twist it a lot easier than I can with my hands, because I need this hand to screw my screw in. So if I put a little bit of weight on that bar clamp, and as I already mentioned, you can use a nail gun if you've got one. So I'm putting 90mm nails through into these pieces of timber every 400mm. Our frame is built. What we've done now is just squared it up, because naturally when you start to build it, it won't be perfectly square. You will need to push it and shove it to line it up with those blocks. And then to hold it in place, we've got L brackets. These are heavy duty L brackets. We're going to screw them to the timber, and then we're going to bolt them down with concrete fixings. We do this for every single block. We're using external grade screws to hold the L brackets to the timber, and then I've got my SDS drill with an 8mm bit, make those holes and drive those concrete fixings down into the block. Super strong, and now it's bolted down. Whole thing's going nowhere. Now we need to build an identical version of that on that side. And look how solid that base is. That is going absolutely nowhere. And the good thing about it is we've got that air gap underneath, so it's never going to rot out, and it's got the strength of a concrete pad. And the great thing about this is, if you're using this for a garden room and you want to insulate your base, you can now put PIR insulation in between each of these, and you'd put a batten underneath, 25mm roofing batten underneath to hold it so it doesn't drop out, and you can insulate this base for your garden room. But as this is only a shed, I don't need to insulate this. This is perfect to now put boards down to create a floor, and I think that'll give you a clue of what the next step is. So make sure you don't miss the next one. If you want to learn how to build a concrete pad, click this video, and if you want to see more outdoor builds this summer, click this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.